Have you ever met someone in business you knew from afar, maybe through their social media account, and you were attracted to them immediately? You loved their energy and their outlook and their attitude, and you just kind of wanted to hang out with them and be best friends because you just thought they were so awesome? And maybe you had set up a meeting with this person, and it had taken quite a while for you to get everything set up, and the day was coming when you were going to meet them. And you were so looking forward to getting together with them, exchanging ideas, and working together for your mutual benefit. And then when you met, it was nothing like you imagined. They were negative in person, they were almost combative with you, and they were nothing like what you saw online and nothing like anyone that you would choose to work with. Or on the flip side, have you ever met someone that you were immediately attracted to in person, wanted to sit down and chat with them all day? Someone whose smile lit up the room and made you feel, warm and comfortable? Someone who made everyone feel welcome and seen? Who would you rather be like? Today, in this episode, we're going to be speaking on the topic of attitude and how we can control it, the benefits of having a good attitude, and the impact to our lives and businesses. If we have an attitude is less than pleasant, can be absolutely catastrophic. So join me today for this conversation. I really, really love this topic that we are going to discuss today, but I'm going to be honest with you. I had a really hard time putting together this podcast and figuring out what I wanted to talk about, what I didn't want to talk about. I didn't want to steer too far off course, and I didn't want it to be so simple as like, yeah, you should have a good attitude. It needed so much more than that, so much more authentic, just conversation about why your attitude is so important and why it's not just important for your life, because I truly believe that your attitude can change your life for the better, but how it can be detrimental to your business. So, we're going to go ahead and we're going to dive into this today. I'm not going to promise that I'm going to cover everything, and I'm not going to promise that it's going to be from every person's perspective. But this is my perspective on attitude and how having a positive one has benefited me in my life. Because I've always had a pretty good, pleasant attitude when it comes to things that happen in my life. And I think a lot of this has to do with my upbringing because, it's just kind of how I'm wired, but also that whole nature versus nurture debate kind of comes into play here. My mom, while I was growing up, was encouraging and positive, just like my father. But, my sister and I kind of gave them a run for their money, especially during their young teenage years, 13, 14, 15. And did not have a good attitude about a lot of things, to be honest with you. And I think one afternoon my mom got pretty fed up. And she was really upset, kind of at the end of her rope. And my dad was clueless. He didn't know what to do with all the girls in the house. And so my mom got out her Bible, and at dinner time, we had to memorize Philippians 4:8. And that's the verse that says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable. If anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about those things. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. My 13-year-old self and my big attitude did not appreciate having to memorize a Bible verse at dinner about having a good attitude when I was having a really, really bad one. I didn't appreciate the message. I was not going to be, keen into looking at whatever was good and honorable and all those things. But as an adult, I still remember that moment. And remember learning that I should concentrate on the good instead of the bad or the negative in any situation, no matter what. And that almost every situation, no matter what it is, you can find something positive. And sometimes the positive comes out in ways that we don't think are positive at the time. We need to give it some space and some room to really reflect. So, like when maybe you break up with that fiance that you thought you were going to spend the rest of your life with, or you don't get a job that seems so great at the time, we don't always know that those things are positive, like I said, until some time has passed and we've been able to change perspective and see what's a little bit waiting for us a little bit further down the road. Now, I believe this to be true, that there's a real difference between positive and negative people in the world. And I firmly believe, thanks to social media, that the majority of people in the world lean toward the negative, but they have no idea that they are that way. Unless someone recognizes their tendency towards negativity and they work diligently to change their mindset, they just go along with life and they simply do not understand why things appear to be so hard for them. When in reality, they're probably not that much harder for them than everybody else, but their perspective is showing them the more negative side. People never sit back and reflect on how their attitude impacts their personal life, in relationships, and in business. And they don't bother to take the time and analyze their interactions with people and notice that they just really aren't that fun to be with, and people don't want to hang out with them. Their social media might be full of complaining and negativity. And a lot of times you see that because it's veiled in sarcastic humor, which, if you dig down deep into it, really isn't that funny. But it just reflects someone who might be bitter and someone who might be thinking that life isn't treating them as well as it should be. But then on the other end of the spectrum are the naturally positive people. That's kind of where I fit, if you didn't figure that out already. We're a smaller group of people for sure, but these people we're pleasant pretty much all the time. And where I see the big differences in this is when things go wrong. We're always looking at the glass half full versus glass half empty. We're the ones greeting with you with a smile early in the morning. And we're the people that, if you looked at our lives, things just seem to go right for us all the time, which isn't necessarily true. Naturally positive people, from what I have seen and research and everything, can be more successful. They can make better decisions, are better, and they're better risk takers. And they seem to always come out on top to the outside world. Whether that's true is a matter of debate. But I have a friend of mine that has always said to me that I lead a charmed life, that things always seem to work out for me. And that isn't true at all. I have absolutely, absolutely had my fair share of fails and falls and trials. But the difference is that you don't see me complain about them. I don't post about them on social media. I really don't mention them to my friends or my family, maybe my husband a little bit, of course. And why is this? Well, because one, I don't really think anybody wants to hear me complain about anything. I don't enjoy hearing people complain. So why would anybody want to hear me complain? And number two, which I think is the biggest thing, is that I don't dwell on those failures. Once something negative happens or something doesn't necessarily work out the way that I want, I'm immediately on to the next thing. I don't have time to sit and dwell on that didn't work. I'm on to the next thing to figure out what will work. I'm not going to sit and wallow. I get back up and I try something again in a new way. And because of this, very few people see my failures. I'm not hiding them at all. I don't want to talk about them and I don't want to dwell on them. I don't want to bore anybody with them. I just wrapped up a full day with my mastermind group that I've been a member of for 2 years. And we have retreats 3 times a year. And today was day one of our third retreat of this year. And we all usually meet together in person, but because of COVID, we haven't had a chance to do that. So some people meet in person. Some of us, about 20 of us, do not meet in person. So we're on a Zoom call all day. And, you know, one of the things in being a part of this mastermind is not that we came together to learn from the person who was leading the group. It's so we have access to successful people who are working on the same things that we're working on and having the same frustrations that we're having. And we can come together and get ideas from each other, help each other, get support. And it's such a vital, vital group. In this group, there are 26 highly successful people who make a lot of money. I am on the very, very low end of the spectrum of how much money is represented in this room. From the founder whose business makes well over 7 figures, to a lot of people who are in 7 figures themselves, some high 6 figures, that type of thing. But they make a lot of money. And let me tell you, they are some of the nicest, most positive people I have ever met. They are positive, helpful, encouraging, and there's no drama. There's no other agenda when we get together except to help each other and get some help in return. And I have found this to be the case with almost every high earning person that I've ever met. And why do you think this is? I think it's all about attitude and perspective. Because when you look at life in a way that you expect a great outcome, many times you know that that's going to be the result simply because you're not going to accept another result, but also your perspective is one of positivity. So you can see the good in any situation. Now, this doesn't mean we have to be happy and positive, encouraging all the time. It's totally fine to have an off day. I certainly have my off days. We all have off days. People with a more positive outlook are simply better at shaking it off and moving on. And that sounds really well and good, but sometimes that's really hard. And it's hard to have a good attitude. I totally get it. Trust me, there are my days when I resemble a hungry, angry T Rex versus the happy, content business owner, wife, and mother that I truly am. So, what happens when the dog gets out and comes back after having rolled in something that smells worse than last week's chicken juice? And the same morning you spill coffee all over your new top and you forget that you had a viewing appointment with your client first thing and you haven't even prepared for it yet. Well, mornings like that suck. Simple as that. But by keeping a level head and realizing that those kind of mornings happen to everyone, you are not special in having a bad morning. We all have to deal with them, and how we deal with them defines how successful the rest of the day is going to be. So, what do? You can sit there and complain and call your client and cancel the appointment, ruining their morning and all those things. Or you can change your top, drop the dog off at the groomer, or just put the dog outside till you deal with it later. Get to the office as soon as you can. Get that appointment ready for your client as quickly as possible because your workflow really should be such that you can do it in about 15 to 20 minutes. So it really shouldn't take all day. You get through the appointment, you have time to catch your breath, take a deep breath. And when the dust settles and you're reflecting on the morning, be thankful that the dog didn't get hit by a car. I mean, that would have been worse than having to give it a bath. Appreciate the fact that you had other clothes to put on even when you spilled your coffee. Be thankful that you had awesome clients that are hiring you for your services and for your beautiful wall portraits. By changing the way you look at a situation and shifting your perspective, you can still have an awesome day. If you are living in a world that sends you more negative messages than positive ones, there is a really simple way for you to change that. Cut it off. Really, just cut off the areas where you are receiving energy and messages that impact your emotional well being. It is okay if you say no to something that is not helping your emotional well being. It can be hard to do, especially depending on where those sources come in, but it's so worth it to free yourself and to lift that heaviness that can come over you. Cut off anything that is not lifting you up, specifically, especially negative news that is coming from our news channels, because I find that very, very heavy to hear all the negativity over and over and over. That doesn't mean I'm uneducated in the topics of the world, but for example, I hate political debates. I don't like listening to people argue back and forth about which way is better and how someone did worse and that type of thing. And it's always been that way. This isn't something that is original to our political climate today. I just have always hated watching them. But I also know that for me to make informed choices, I need to know what is said in these debates. But I don't like the awkward feeling that I get because I just want everyone to get along. So, what I do is I choose to read the transcripts of those things after the event, like the morning after they come out. It's really quick. And what that does is by me reading it in my own voice, I lose all the heavy emotions that I feel when I hear people talking about these things live. So that is something that I do, and I do it for a lot of different things. I do it especially for people who are listening in the U.S. I do it for our State of the Union addresses. I do it for anything political, any sort of presidential, vice president debates, that type of thing. I don't choose to watch those things live because, first of all, it's kind of embarrassing for the people who are arguing for their point, but also I just don't like it. It makes me feel gross and slimy. So I choose to read it afterwards so I get the information that I need, but I don't have that emotional input that comes at the time they're being shown live. So another thing that I do to cut off that negativity and that input that happens is I don't post or read negative articles posted on social media. And there's a lot of them. I try not to follow negative groups. I try not to have that influence coming in because social media can be so invasive for these types of things. I try not to follow sarcastic influencers. And a lot of them are really, really funny. But I personally don't find that sarcasm for humor is always what I need to hear and what uplifts my attitude. The negativity just always seems to seep through. I choose what I read and listen to very, very carefully. I make the choice not to spend a ton of time following or listening to negative friends and family, and that can be a really, really hard one. Especially if you have some family members that you see at the picnic every year and they're just negative. I have someone in my family who is very, very negative, and I just basically have had to cut her off. because everything is the sky is falling, everything that the world is out for her. There's no personal responsibility, and it's just hard to listen to. So I know that for me to protect my attitude and my outlook on life, I can't sit and listen to her for an extended period of time. Because many times the grumbles and so forth is like the world is out to get me. This is so bad, blah, 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 blah. When the world isn't out to get them, if they just shifted their perspective a little bit, they could see how good the world really is and the people around them who care about them truly are. Now, I know that some of you must be thinking, man, Dory must live under a rock, and she does so to protect her attitude, and that is why she's happy all the time. She just doesn't know about everything that's going on in the world. Now, that's truly, truly, truly not the case. I consider myself pretty well informed about the ways of the world and everything that goes on around me. I just choose to run things through a different filter than most. And I choose to believe that I can be informed and get the information, but I can do it in a way that doesn't impact my emotional state, which is the one thing that I'm most protective of. There are people who don't watch the news, who don't follow social media, and they're still very well informed about the world around them. And I might dare to say that by choosing a non-traditional approach of gathering information, that they might be happier and more content than many, many, many others that I come in contact with. By bringing a positive attitude into your business, you can benefit in many different ways. Your messaging to your clients will start to change. You will start attracting more of the type of people that you want to work with. You are more pleasant to work with, and people will refer you to their friends. You're going to have more fun. I promise. It's more fun to do things when you're happy. And you're going to earn a better reputation around town. People will want to do business with you. The list will go on and on and on. There is nothing, I repeat, nothing positive about maintaining a sarcastic, negative attitude in any area of your life. There is simply no benefit whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. One thing that I've tried to practice daily for quite a while is diligent gratefulness and thankfulness. I say diligent because there are days when this doesn't come easily. But by taking a minute every day and reflecting on my many, many blessings, even when they are in disguise, it has a way of shaping my attitude and making it one of joy and pleasantness versus sourness and negativity. My grandfather, he always looked like he had a smile on his face. His mouth turned up in a pleasant fashion all the time, even when he was sleeping. I asked him once why he always looked like he was smiling, and he told me that he had smiled so much in his life that his mouth just normally froze that way. Now, I don't know about you, but I would much rather freeze my face in a smile in a way that emphasizes my contentment on the inside than have a scowly, dreadful, grumpy look all the time. And that is all in your attitude. We get to choose our attitude. And that is a lesson in life that I don't really think sunk in with me until I had been kicked around a little bit. At some point in time, I heard a speaker, it might have been Lucy Swindoll, and she recently passed away from complications from COVID. And she said, "It isn't if you will have bad days or hard times, it is when." And for some reason, that always stuck with me. We don't escape a life without pain, sadness, or grief. And this is so true on many, many levels. However, we may not have a choice of how or when those things get dealt out. And we can let them drag us down or we can rise above, even when it is really, really hard. One of the greatest things about being human is that we have the capacity to choose our attitude. We can say that we are having a horrible year, which many people might choose to do right now. Or we can say, yeah, I've had some hard times this year, but I'm thankful that I have my health, my family, my business, my friends, or whatever you want to fill the blank in for your list, whatever applies. Having that attitude of gratefulness and thankfulness will absolutely impact your attitude. By just embracing that small shift in perspective, your attitude will begin to shift as well, I promise.